Right then, what do you get if you cross Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Jaws? Nope, haven't got a clue. Well, I don't think Nope is one of the best films I've ever seen, but for us 4K collectors it does have some redeeming qualities, namely genuine IMAX and Panavision Super 70, but I'll get into that shortly. I didn't go into it with any expectations, and at the end of it I was surprised to learn that the filmmakers and most critics describe it mainly as a horror movie. I didn't see it like that. I saw it as more of a science fiction mystery thriller, something like that. But I do feel that just like Jordan Peele's previous film, Us, I thought the first half was better than the second half, and that's because the mystery is there. You really don't know what you're looking at, and I like that side of it. I was aware that I felt it would maybe be a little disappointing in the second half, because at some point we were going to have to be told what was going on, what it was all about, and I felt that would be a bit different to the first half because the mystery element would be gone. But the reason I didn't watch this sooner was because I really didn't find the artwork on this particularly inspiring. There were various poster arts for it, and this was just one, and I don't think they chose the right one. And also the title Nope, I mean, that's hardly inspiring, is it? But when you see the film, you perhaps realise why it's called Nope, because Daniel Kaluuya's character, at one point, he just mutters the word very quietly, Nope. And that, I think, is where the title comes from. So I suppose when they wrote the script, they thought, oh, that would be a good word for the title, or they might have thought, let's slip that in and just give it a ridiculous name that no one will know what it's about. And in that regard, now that I've watched it, I find I'm rather liking the artwork and the title. I think it's about 50 minutes in we get the first higher section, the 178:1, which would have been 143:1 on genuine IMAX screens, but cropped a bit for the home market, and I do think that is the right thing to do with our 178:1 screens. Otherwise, as in Batman v Superman, you get the black bars down the side to get the full height of the image. But anyway, I digress. It does have that redeeming quality of a lot of IMAX, a lot of IMAX, and it really is of the highest quality. The rest of it is shot mainly 65mm, which is Panavision Super 70, and so the clarity of that is just about as good as the genuine IMAX shots, because it's the same width of the film. It's just not got the height of IMAX, but fantastic. The best tools of the trade have been used in this. There is a bit of 35mm for a mock sitcom called Morty or Mordy or something, about a chimpanzee and a family, and that is there to shock and to make us realise that if we put wild animals into situations that they're not used to or shouldn't be in, and do things like stick party hats on them and try and turn them into caricatures of human beings, then there will sometimes be consequences, and that is a fairly horrific sequence. It was shot 35mm, so you've got a 1:33:1 aspect ratio there, and it's not intended to look as good as the rest of the film, which does look exquisite. I have the impression from watching all the extras that it wasn't the intention initially to shoot this in large film formats, particularly IMAX. But once Hoyte van Hoytema was employed as the director of photography, I suppose it was always going to be a chance, as he'd done much of the cinematography on Christopher Nolan's more recent IMAX films. But the difference with Christopher Nolan's is that on the end of it, and this was the thing that subscriber Rhoda pointed out to me, there is the shot and finished on film end credit. So although I've got concerns about how this might have looked in cinemas, I'm sure it still looked fantastic, just perhaps not quite as fantastic as it otherwise would have done if it had been entirely finished on film. But on this 4K disc, doesn't affect anything. We've got that 4K Video Master, and it is one of the superlative 4K discs on the market. The density from the HDR is just incredible to look at. The colour's incredible, the contrast, the detail. Look in the distance at the mountains in some of this, and you'll see sharp detail back there. I know most people, they point out facial details and that. That's not the thing to look at, it's the distance. How sharp is it? And yes, there are one or two shots I spotted where I thought, That looks a bit more like 35mm. It might have been, but equally it might have been the 6.5K video that was used in this. It might have been 70mm, just not quite capturing the detail as well as the rest of it. But the 6.5K video, I think that's for the helicopter shots, and that is extremely sharp and blends in well to the rest of the film. But whatever anyone may or may not think about this film, it's clearly made by people who love the film medium, and you'll see cameras in this, including what must have been an early mock-up of a portable handheld IMAX camera that Hoyte van Hoytema was involved in. But if you ever see one of these things in action, it really is incredible that these things don't simply blow up. It's an engineering marvel, and hopefully I'll get to show you something of that soon. The aspect ratio varies from 1:33:1 for the mock sitcom television series to 2.20:1 for the 70mm sequences, and a bit of a cropped IMAX frame, cropped down from 1:43:1 to 1:78:1 to fill our home video screens or our home televisions, and I do think that's the right way to go for home video. The Blu-ray in this is probably superior to just about every other 4K disc out there, most of them anyway. It's so sharp, it's going to be sharper than just about most everything you've seen up to now, apart from other top-notch 4K and Blu-ray discs. So when you look at the Blu-ray, you think it can't possibly get much better than this. You put the 4K back in, and yes it can, and it's the HDR again that makes that world of difference between the two. So if you think the Blu-ray's perfect, there's something even better. So if you haven't got into 4K yet, this is one of those that you're really going to have to get hold of. Whatever you think of the film, I think you will enjoy the clarity and the way this one looks, and the sound too. I'm running THX51 in here, so not Dolby Atmos. It would be a bit difficult with the size of THX speakers. You certainly wouldn't want to walk underneath one of the overheads if you had one of these strapped to the ceiling, I can tell you. But the sound in here was absolutely fantastic too. So all round, this really is just about the perfect 4K disc. It just depends really on how much you enjoy or perhaps don't enjoy the film. I enjoyed it. I think it was a much better film having had such good image quality and such good sound. It made it all the more worthwhile to watch and to listen to, and so I don't think there'll be many people too disappointed. But you never know. If you are expecting that Close Encounters remake, then you may be in for something a little different. It had an estimated budget of $68 million, and it took at the worldwide box office a gross of $171 million. It has a running time of 2 hours and 10 minutes, but perhaps the only other thing to say about this film is Brandon Pereira's character when he comes into it. Angel Torres, his name in this film. He soon starts using a particular 4-letter word, rather a little too much. That won't bother most people, but it might do if you think you might ever be sitting down to watch this with your grandparents, so that's something to bear in mind. And also the sequence, the mock sitcom sequence with the chimpanzee. Some may find that a little too graphic or a little too nasty to look at, but it's supposed to be a horror movie, that's why these things are in there. What makes this a special 4K purchase for me is the 1570 IMAX, the ultimate movie making medium, and it shrinks down so perfectly onto this that I do think it's worth recommending. But you may not care for the film too much, there will be a lot of people who don't, but I think it's worth looking at just to see how good 4K video really can be. I don't know where it would come in my top 10 list, I would have to go through a whole comparison again, but I think it's going to be up there. So worth considering on that basis. And on that basis, I know I've said it before, but Christopher Nolan's next IMAX film, Oppenheimer, is out towards the end of July, so none of that faux IMAX nonsense when it comes to Oppenheimer at the BFI IMAX. And I'm hoping that we're going to be getting a whole series of Christopher Nolan IMAX films at the IMAX before that time. As soon as I've got any news or if I hear anything, I shall endeavour to get another video out, so maybe a few of us can get along to see what is the ultimate movie medium at the cinema, 1570 IMAX, and some of these great Christopher Nolan films that we've enjoyed on 4K, such as Dunkirk, Interstellar, Tenet, The Dark Knight Rises and The Dark Knight, all great in their own respects, and if they're on at the IMAX, I'm hoping to bring news to you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing so I'll be encouraged to carry on creating content like this. Until the next video, bye bye for now.